everybody. Welcome to the Kingdom Podcast. I have a new friend with me here today, Lance Schuttler. I hope I said that right. Lance is, I've been looking over his bio and watching some of your stuff online. Amazing stuff. Lance writes for the Epic Times. He is also the owner of Ancient Nutrition, which some of that I've been listening to on YouTube from Lance, and it's quite amazing, quite amazing. Lance, I want to say welcome today to the Kingdom Podcast, and man, we're so honored to have you on.
Thank you, Dr. Greg. I appreciate you having me on. Definitely looking forward to it.
Could you take a couple of minutes and just give us a proper introduction to what you're doing and why Ancient Nutrition is so important to you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll share a little bit of my, schooling background, and then I'll go back to, where things really began. Okay. So, I graduated from the University of Iowa with a degree in health science. And as you said, also write for the Epoch Times and really have just a deep interest in health and wellness, but also what's playing out in the world politically, spiritually, and everything that's really taking place. So, Greg, back in 2008, my father was on some pharmaceuticals. He had never really been on anything throughout his life. He was just feeling depressed, just very frank. And we grew up in Iowa, cold, long, dark winters. And he had been switched on and off between a few different medications. And within a handful of months, he ended up taking his life. Oh. So it was, the big wake up call for me and my family. And it really, forced the issue for me in particular to start looking at what's going on in healthcare. So where things began for me was that I actually started learning about all the darkness and all the corruption and all the blatant, mistreatment that this whole system has been, undergoing for quite a long time. So, that was sort of the beginning of my red pill moment. And I started learning about things, started learning about how the whole system's really is rigged, not just from a healthcare angle, but then learning how that ties in with politics and money and how all of those different interests sort of commingle and have created this massive, conspiracy reality that we now see playing out.
That's right. Mental health is a big issue with me too. And we have, my wife and I, Joanne, we own a mental health clinic. We have, in addition to our ministry stuff that we do, it's called TMS of Tennessee. We use a NeuroStar system. Part of what our goal is, Lance, is to help people get totally off of any kind of pharmaceutical thing that their psychiatrist to put them on or those types of things. It doesn't seem like the healthcare industry is interested in healing people, but keeping them medicated so they can keep their business running.
Yeah, exactly. And, a couple of years after that, Dr. Greg, that was when things like really started to escalate for me. And it kind of ties in directly to that. So I was learning about all these different things going on and started putting a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together. But then back in 2010, so it was about 2 years after that, I was in an online anatomy and physiology class. It was a summer class, just, basic class, anatomy and physiology, nothing out of the ordinary. Each week, 15 weeks was dedicated to a different topic, nervous system, cardiovascular, so forth.
Right.
And right in the middle, week 8 was called Inventing the AIDS Virus ? So the professor at that time, he wouldn't be able to get away with it right now for sure, for most colleges, but he was able to actually start talking about that topic. And what we specifically talked about was a book called Inventing the AIDS Virus by Dr. Peter Duesberg. And he was a scientist at USC. Him and his colleagues went through a lot of, data and information, published a 500-page plus book on this topic, and started talking about how Fauci, Bob Gallo, AZT, that drug, and how all of those sort of things tied together, and how it was really intentionally harming people, what they were doing. And, that for me was even more of a red pill moment, because I had to make the choice. which was, okay, do I want to just accept what the mainstream and what the media is telling me, and the people in school, my friends and colleagues, family, that they're not actively trying to harm us, just the system isn't great but it works, and trust your doctor, trust your pharmacist, trust all these people, don't question the status quo? Do I want to do that, or do I want to take the red pill and dive deep and keep learning about everything that I learned about in that book? So I took the red pill, obviously, and I started learning very uncomfortable truths. This, your audience knows these things as well. And it really catapulted me into a new awareness that this really is good versus evil. This goes way beyond just the physical. These are, spiritual battles that we're fighting every day. And, we need to do what we can in the physical and do what we can in the spiritual to ensure that we're, on the right course and not being led astray.
There's not, this is sad to say, but there's not a great awareness from the populace in our country, especially those in the church world, Christian world, that the spiritual end on the side of darkness is very alive and very active and very purposeful, and has an assignment and is doing its thing. We sometimes tend to think that the spiritual thing is, okay, we'll just pray, we'll ask God to do something, we'll ask for a breakthrough, whatever. But the other side, that some of those that you just mentioned, they are empowered by this stuff, and they are walking out assignments spiritually from the kingdom of darkness. And sometimes those of us in the kingdom of light don't understand that that's a very active piece too. And I'll just use the word, it's demonic. And that side of things, the evil side, is very alive. And some of their ideas and some of their inventions and some of their, coming up with these types of viruses and diseases and things, some of that stuff doesn't just come out of a petri dish. Some of that stuff comes out of influence and intelligence, if I could use that word, from this realm of darkness. And how do you see that? How do you see the spiritual aspect, Lance, of what we would say, hey, no, I'm doing in my everyday life, just going through life? The interaction of how darkness is very involved to keep people unhealthy, to keep people bound in things, and actually to take people's lives. And we could probably go on to say to cull the population some. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I fully align on it because they're very intentional with what they've done. They know exactly what's going on. One example, we've faced our battles, and it's sort of hard to say in some cases where these things came from. But as we know, they try to attack the light, and they try to go after people or companies or things that are happening that are trying to spread the truth and trying to help people. Yeah. And so, me personally, I just put on the armor of God every day because I know that I'm walking into a true battle. And it hasn't been, that awareness from day one, but right. that has grown, and those two moments really catapulted that understanding that this is war in many regards, because these demons, these entities, and these people, they want to stop at nothing to take our life, and they want us to suffer while they're doing it too. It is demonic. It's straight evil. There's nothing else really to describe it. Kind of going further with that too, on a specific example with the pesticide glyphosate. Okay, so what happens is glyphosate will target a certain pathway called the shikimic acid pathway, or the shikimate pathway. And this is a 7-step process that basically all of life on this planet uses to produce amino acids and neurotransmitters and all sorts of different compounds. Glyphosate will stop that process, and that's why it will kill certain weeds. And it does a great job at that, but that compound, glyphosate, and other pesticides like it are extremely damaging to us humans and to the animals. But specifically in us humans, it targets something known as the P53 gene. Okay, so this gene is the most studied gene in the human genome. So what are the odds? And one other point with this too. So the P53 gene is the most prolific in helping the body to defend itself from cancer. Cancer that's benign. We all got cancer cells in us. So the P53 and other genes will help to really upregulate the immune system and help kind of neutralize the cancerous spreading effects of what can happen. So back to this, what are the odds? What are the chances that glyphosate targets this P53 gene, which they actually call the guardian of the genome, the most studied gene in the human genome, and it helps to prevent and protect us from cancer? So there's no coincidences. We know that they know exactly what they've been targeting. And they have full knowledge and awareness on that, and even more so than we're even talking about. This is surface level to them. They're very, this. They're fanatics with their rituals, with the way that they do their symbolism, and the way that they carry out their operations.
This is something that I think needs to be talked about a lot more than just surrendering to a doctor and saying, okay, do whatever you think is best for me. Because the medical industry is so corrupt at the moment. And doctors are not taking best interest with their patients. They're just prescribing because they get money for that. There's also, Lance, the altering of DNA. There's the human genome, those types of things that are being affected by what we're eating. Now, I know that some things that we deal with physically is genetic. Some of it's spiritual, but also they're creating an atmosphere for these things genetically to begin to appear that have never been there before. So talk about that just a little bit, about what's happening in that area with the manipulation of the human genome.
Yeah, exactly. So all the different toxins and poisons that we're exposed to, through the air, the water, the pharmaceuticals, just everyday life now. The water has become increasingly less clean and more polluted. We can do things to filter things out, but if we're taking showers and baths, we're ultimately exposed to it in a lot of different ways. The foods mostly sprayed with pesticides. We're taking that in. It's disrupting things, but the way that happens, they call it epigenetics, where the outside environment, epi, is changing how the genetics perform and how they're really structured and how they function. So it's the outside environment, the environment that we're around, that it changes and influences how our genes and our DNA moment by moment is expressing themselves. Is it in a healthy state, a lowered state? All these different toxins that have been accumulated and really dumped on us in different ways, that takes its toll. And so it limits the expression of healthy genes, down regulates them in a way where they don't perform at their best. We start not feeling our best. It impacts us in ways that we're aware of and not aware of. So it's just sort of this hyper accumulation effect of all these toxins. And so when we can detox or choose cleaner products that have not been genetically modified or engineered, we want to avoid GMOs, then we give ourselves the best chance to be the healthiest that we can be and actually live in, what our true expression should be as human beings on this planet, and not these cyborg robots that they want to turn us into.
That's right. I agree with you, man. And it's very scary. My doctorate is not, I have a couple of them. They're not in the medical field, even though after I got my first one, I really wanted to try brain surgery, but nobody let me do that. So it's, I'm more on I have a PhD and a THD, a lot of theology and that type of stuff, but I study this stuff a lot. I want you to, if you could, Lance, talk about it. We hear the why. This is how we've become this way, or why we're this way. How do we fix this stuff in our bodies? How do we start a process? And you've got products for this type of stuff too, I know, but how do we start the process of becoming healthier people that can have uh, longevity in the earth? I mean, not just 70 or 75 years, but get back to that 120-year thing. I want to
Yeah.
live a long time. I want my family to live a long time. So what steps do we need to take to start getting healthy, remain healthy, detox these things out of our bodies, and become who God designed us to be?
Yeah, great question, Dr. Greg. So obviously, there's a million different answers a person can
Yes.
get, a lot of different approaches. But to me, it begins first in the mind and in the spirit, aligning your spirit and your mindset, getting your mind right and your soul right in a way where you're aligning with what the truth is, aligning with your faith and belief, and making sure that we're coming from a place of uh, authenticity and realness in that way, and knowing that if we align with God and align with that truth, then we are walking the right path, and the answers will come from there. But to me, then some simple things in that we can practice is detoxification. So the first thing that I always like telling people is do the free things. Okay. So one thing as an example is sweating. Okay. You can pay to do that. You can go to a sauna or buy a sauna, or you can exercise and sweat. And typically that is free. Okay. If you're going to just exercise and sweat, but sauna is definitely the best. The reason I'm suggesting that at the beginning is we want to first get rid of all the crap that's been in the body. And it's not going to happen overnight, of course, but the skin being the largest organ, it will remove toxins very quick if we start sweating. So me
Wow.
personally, I'm doing sauna 2 or 3 times a week at least, and really trying to maintain a clean body so I can have a clean mind.
Yeah.
Starting there is great, and doing what you can do to sweat. That's the first principle in my mind, because when you also do that, you relieve the liver of needing to uh, basically cleanse out those toxins, and it's a much slower process. So when you can dump toxins out through the sweat,
Hmm.
it helps the body to not have to use that energy to detox what you would have been, what you did just sweat out.
Wow.
So it gives the body more energy to where, okay, you can digest your food better. You can detox other things that are still in your body more efficiently. And, that really does work. So that's one concept, eating as much organic as possible and limiting the amount of foods that have been sprayed with pesticides. Asking, if you go into a farmer's market, asking the farmer what practices are they doing, looking, whatever store you're at, buying the food, seeing if they've got organic options, if that's in your budget and if they've got that available. Water, most tap water is poison these days,
That's
and
right.
you really don't even want to have anything to do with it. Bottled water, of course, has the microplastics and the PFAS and things like that, but you know, it's the lesser of two evils, really. Clean bottled water or poison tap water. No, I'm typically choosing clean bottled water of some different brands that I think are good. Fiji's a good one. Icelandic water is a good one.
Okay.
Uh, just some examples. Uh, those to me are like a good foundational step for people is sweating and detoxing, looking for foods that are not grown with pesticides, and switching out your water to be as clean as you can.
Let me ask a question right here. What about the Brita water filters and those types of things? Do those things work well when you pull tap water through them to take all of that junk out of there? And if you bottle your own water type of thing, is that something that is healthy, or is it just not doing anything at all?
It's better than nothing for sure. And obviously, you'll get what you pay for all the different filters. There's a lot of good ones out there, some that are just okay, some that are not good. Um, because there's so many, then a person needs to kind of just do their homework on what they feel is best for them, their budget, and all of that. But definitely, something is better than nothing for filters typically. But these days now with like spring water that you can get in a bottled format, or sometimes even stores have got it where you can get it in larger containers. That's an option. Obviously, we don't want to be reliant on stores. I totally get that. We want to be self-reliant, but it just sort of depends on the person and their situation, and where they live, what their setup is like, and things, along those lines.
Yeah, my wife and I started years ago. Stopped drinking our tap water, and buying filters and trying to filter water, stuff like that. And we actually could tell a difference in the way that we felt. There's, like you said, so much poison in our tap water. What are some other things, Lance, that we can do to get ourselves healthy? I know you've got some products. I'd like you to talk about some of that stuff for just a moment, if you don't mind, and also tell us how we can get it, how we can the audience can contact you and get some of these things from you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Greg. So we've got a few products. The company Ascent Nutrition started it 3.5 years ago. Wanted to really offer products that are clean and unique, and really get it where the sourcing of it is as clean as possible. So, as an example, we've got a coffee that is organic, so no pesticides sprayed, and we go above and beyond organic, where it's mold and mycotoxin free. And we show the certificate of analysis on that, show the testing results. We test the 12 different major molds and mycotoxins and show, they're basically non-existent there in our coffee. Most
Wow.
coffee companies are not going to, first, they're not going to run the test. And second, they wouldn't even show the test if they did it, because most coffee, 97%, is sprayed with pesticides. And then 50 to 60%, 50 to 70 is the range typically, also contains mold and mycotoxin. So most coffees got both of them. And that's an easy thing as well for people to switch out. If you're
Wow.
drinking coffee and it's sprayed with pesticides, you are getting those pesticides in your body, and you're most likely getting mold. And there's just way cleaner options. Whether you get it from us or not, it doesn't matter. We've got it to offer, but the point is, you can find cleaner options out there other than just your regular run of the mill coffee that we've just been marketed to for really our whole lives.
Yeah, Starbucks being one of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of symbolism with that company.
I drink a lot of coffee. I'll drink a pot a day. I mean, I just think it's heaven's nectar. So,
Yep, it is.
what are some other things that you've got that could benefit the public?
Yeah, so the humic and fulvic acid, that is a heavy metal chelation and detox product. So it will bind to heavy metals. It will also bind to different pesticides, and it can actually help pull out these different toxins and poisons that are in the soil, but also in our blood, because we're getting them, in the water and the food and things like that. So humic and fulvic acid, it's a fantastic detox product. Also helps with the gut. It's a capsule form, very easy to take, and it's gentle, but also very strong in that it will do what it says. So we had a lady where she was not taking anything else. She was looking at she had psoriasis on her skin for 30 years.
Mm.
She took the humic and fulvic acid, and within about 45 days, that was the only thing else she was doing different. She had the psoriasis dry up and flake off, go away completely. She had swelling in her joints, basically, arthritic hands from the inflammation and from these different, toxins that can be stimulate that. All the swelling in her hands completely went away. Now that's amazing. And she did something else too, which was before taking the product, she tested herself with a magnet. She placed it on her chest and her torso, and the magnet stuck. Okay, so heavy metals.
What?
We don't know if she had been recently vaccinated or not. We didn't ask, not our business. She didn't share that. That's fine. After taking the product, 45 days later, she did the same thing. Again, her psoriasis went away completely, and she tested it with the magnet, both those spots again. It didn't stick.
Wow.
Yeah, so it definitely has heavy metal binding properties. You can find that on PubMed. There's a lot of good information out there. Also binds to certain, we'll call them S protein receptors to kind of help the S protein from shedding, let's say.
Yep.
I'm using sort of super language, but you all follow what I'm saying. You can find that on PubMed as well. So that's very important for these times. We also got a pine needle extract, which a lot of people have heard about pine needle tea, also for cleansing the blood and, with the whole shedding situation. The pine needle tea helps with that, and just great for general immune support too. So we wild harvest pine needles, and we've got that in a really tasty little tincture format.
Wow.
Something on the topic, or a few things on the topic of mental health, is our omega-3 products. So when people think of omega-3s, they generally think fish oils, and that's true, but fish are actually the secondhand source of omega-3s. Fish eat algae and incorporate those in their cellular membranes, but algae is the source of the omega-3s. So what we do is we bypass the middleman, literally and metaphorically, to where we don't have to go to the fish, we go to the source, which is algae. And so we cut all of that unnecessary processing, all of the waste that is involved in fish oil. And this isn't on a dietary side. Like, we're not pro or anti fish or meat, nothing like that. We just want to offer the cleanest source out there for people. And again, with this, we show the COA on this because we want people to know how clean this is for the omegas. And we know about this omega-3s, fantastic for the brain, for mental health. I mean, there's studies out there for schizophrenia, ADD, ADHD. There's
Really?
bipolar studies for omega-3s and all human studies. Omega-3s is really one of the most studied nutritional compounds out there. Like, we humans have to get them in our diet. That's why they call them essential fatty acids.
Yeah.
So when we do, it impacts us in many positive ways. And so we just want to offer the cleanest source of it for people. And so we do that. And that's our algae oil DHA product. We've got different mushroom products, not psychedelic mushrooms, but mushrooms that can also still help the brain, like lion's mane mushroom and agarikon. Agarikon was studied after 9/11. The Biodefense Bioshield program from the Department of Defense did a massive study on chemical weapons and antidotes to things like cowpox, bird flu, anthrax. Back after 9/11, all that stuff was happening. They did a huge study, and agarikon mushroom, long story short, was off the charts in its capabilities. And the information wasn't really intended to get out there, but there was divine intervention, and it got out there in a couple different unique ways. And so now the information is out there, and we've got a product on that. So that's great for immune support, respiratory, and just when people are around other people who are sick, or if you're traveling. This whole bird situation right now, it applies directly to it because of the studies that were done back 20 years ago. So very, very strong stuff. Lots of organic, truly clean products is what we've got, and we're really just trying to get the good stuff out to the people, Greg. Just as simple as that.
How do we get those? Give us your website, how to order, those types of things, because I know with that information, people are going to want to get these products. I'm going to get some coffee.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Greg. Appreciate it. So the website is goascentnutrition.com. That's ASCENT, goascentnutrition.com. And you can find us on the socials as well. My website, lanceschuttler.com. There's some information there, but on the products, goascentnutrition.com is where things are at.
Awesome. Awesome. Lance, man, this has been so interesting. I'll tell you, I could talk on these subjects for a very long time. Like I said, mental health is a very thing that's near and dear to my heart, my wife's heart, because of especially our military guys. We treat a lot of those people as well as the general population in our clinic. But I want to get you back on here sometime to talk specifically about mental health, if we could do that sometime. Sure. But I want to just say thank you again. We're going to push this for you, and I want to just encourage everybody listening and watching, whatever platform you're on, go to Lance's website. You'll see it here to be in the bio. We'll have it all there in the description, and get these things and connect with him. He's got some great things to help you get to the healthy you and to remain there. All right, Lance, buddy, thank you again for being here with us. And I really appreciate it. Look forward to the next time.
Same here. Thanks, Dr. Greg. God bless you. I really appreciate it. Truly.
Bless you, buddy. Thank you for being here.